Mike Rogers, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, repeat. Before we even get started, I want to publicly say thank you. You have introduced me to 3 guests on the show now, and all 3 guests have been not just like great episodes, but people that I now still keep in touch with. And that's Todd Fox, Paul Collum, and Pete Menke. And each 3 of those guys came with them different backgrounds, some similarities, definitely like a Venn diagram, right? Like especially with Pete and Todd with their backgrounds in the military. But Paul Collum was just, before I met Paul, I just assumed that everyone in wrestling was as ego-driven as I was. And then to meet someone like him, I was like, this is crazy. Like you have the drive, but you seem so humble. It's an interesting paradigm. So I just wanted to say thanks. You provided me some great guests. So thank you.
You never heard of Paul before?
No.
No?
The problem is, I said this on the Justin Bricker show. I am so awful at like the in-depth of topics. Like I don't have the time or the patience to like dig into the weeds in anything. So like MMA, wrestling, all these other things that don't necessarily revolve around what kind of, this is gonna sound kind of shitty to say, makes me money, if that makes sense. Like I'm much more inundated with like logistics, freight, technology.
Yeah.
So it's
Paul's a good. He was a good. I enjoyed it, and he is probably the best coach in the Midwest. I would think. He's
How did
really
you
good.
meet him? Was he coming to Saint Charles?
I remember I had heard about him.
Okay.
And when he wrestled in college, and then, I guess he had taken a break from wrestling, and Sampo called me up and said, "Hey, we need a place for him to run a little program, because he didn't have a room in Francis Howell." And I was like, "Yeah, he can come in." And so he did for a summer, I think. Ran a couple nights a week, and then after that, they let him into Francis Howell.
Well, he told me he's growing. He's got like 200 kids.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Well, I mean, it's the best product for the best price. You know, it's like buying a I don't know, what's the best car now? The Toyota Tundra.
Oh, bang for buck.
It's like bang for buck. It's it's like buying a Mercedes for $50.
Yeah.
And some of these other gyms are way more expensive.
No, when he told me $180, I thought he was gonna say like month or a week. When he said it for the summer, I was like, dude.
Yeah, he has a full-time job. He's pretty happy with it, and I think he's pretty. Talking to him, he seems pretty efficient with his job, and he gets in and out.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because it seems that all the people that are doing society a net positive seem to have many irons in the fire. So, for instance, Saint Charles MMA is a gym that you own, but it's not your sole source of income. It's not the only business that you run. You also have a roofing company. Do you think that having the roofing company and all, the benefits financial that brings you allows you to run Saint Charles MMA more how you would want to run a gym and less how you would have to run a gym if that was your sole source of income?
Well, I don't know. I've always ran it the same way, so yeah, I guess because I've never, maybe a very short period of time where I just made money off the gym. Most of the time, I've had 2-3 jobs.
Gotcha.
When I started out, I was doing 3 jobs.
Like overemployment, meaning like 3
I
jobs?
was roofing, I was bouncing on the weekends, and then I was, then running the gym.
I could see you as a bouncer, actually. That doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
You're like the one guy that I would be like, all right, man.
I never had I don't remember ever
Shocker.
being in many fights or anything. It's just
Mike's like, hey, calm down.
I did it for years. And
What was the job that you liked the most when you were younger? Was it bouncing?
No, I didn't. It was easy. So, but I didn't like the music. So and then you're sitting in a bar by a bunch of drunk people. I really didn't like it, honestly.
Yeah.
So, no, I didn't like any of my jobs. I was a school teacher for 4 years. I like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What did you teach?
PE. I was at
physical education.
McClure High School.
Is that how you met Tyron? You were his high school wrestling coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you were literally there for 4 years. What, Tyron's freshman to senior year?
His junior, senior year.
Oh, so the 2 years. Why, if you don't mind me asking, why only 4 years? Why didn't you
I
make
kept
that?
because I'd make my own schedule, So if you're teaching, you don't make your own schedule. Hindsight maybe have been better. I'd probably be retired now, and they have the best retirement. Like
Yeah.
teachers don't get paid little. They get paid plenty. I made plenty of money because you can work during the summer. When people say the teachers don't make any money, that's silly. The teachers, they get insurance, the best insurance, a decent pay, and you're off 4 months of the year.
Holidays, spring
Holidays.
break,
I mean, now
weekends.
my kids are off spring break, fall break, Christmas break. They're off for 2 weeks. They're off every day, every other day. They're off school.
Do you think that, and forgive me for saying this, though, do you think you're kind of biased in that because you probably have like the best job in education, and that's physical education? Like, would
Maybe,
you say
yeah.
that if you were teaching math or like social studies?
I don't know. I assume that people that teach math and social studies love math and social studies.
Fair.
You know, I mean, I was a minor in history, so I would have enjoyed teaching that. I wouldn't have enjoyed teaching math.
Yeah.
I would not having the students be smarter than me. you know, so I would have to do remedial.
So then it was basically like you couldn't necessarily work your own schedule the way you wanted to. So you were like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm not going to be an educator.
Yeah, I just
anymore.
wanted to do my own thing. So
Is that when you started the roofing company, or was there?
I didn't start a roofing company until I was just doing training and roofing. I was dumb. I roofed for somebody else, and I was poor. I was poor until a few years ago.
Just wanted to take a second to pause the action and just tell you guys thank you so much for consuming our content. Easy Talk is a passion project. This podcast is just a bunch of like-minded people coming together to produce some cool stuff and talk to some cool people. One of the things I would very much appreciate is if you could possibly like the video or subscribe to the channel, just because it helps us in the algorithm and ultimately to grow, to get more exposure to everybody, including ourselves, and ultimately just make a better product. Take a second. I'd greatly appreciate it. And on with the show.
So, but
Now life is good.
life's turned around a little bit.
If I may ask, because I just had Rodrigo on, and that episode's going to come out tomorrow. The way he spoke about you was a lot more different than I thought he would, because he was your coach, like he was your trainer. But the way he talked about you was more like less vertical, more horizontal, as like a brother, as like a partner, like you guys are in this together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was kind of, I don't want to say the word refreshing, but it was like, I didn't see that coming, right? Can you talk to me? I didn't know that you were his first black belt. Can you talk to me about the relationship you have with Rodrigo today?
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a life-changing event meeting him because, I mean, he was the first jiu-jitsu guy in St. Louis in the Midwest, I think. And we all lucked out by just looking in the yellow pages and finding him. And, he's always been supportive of everything I've done. When I opened my gym, I think people had offered me to open gyms in South County. And I was like, that I can't open a gym close to him. So when I opened the gym, it was in Saint Charles, and he's like, oh, yeah. And he gave me like 4 or 5 students that lived out there, and and I always represent Team Vaghi. I mean, you probably remember everything we did was we represented his gym.
When I was there, it was actually because I was younger. I didn't really get it. You know what I mean? I was like, "Who the hell's this Vaghi guy?" Like,
Yeah, but it was on everything.
It was on everything. It was.
Yeah.
I even asked you one time. I was like, "When did you make that logo?" And you're like, "I didn't." Like that's not my logo.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was 21, 20 years old, I was like so mind blown. I was like, "Wait, what is going on?"
Yeah.
It's only in hindsight that I realized the relationship and the camaraderie. Do you take any pride in being his first black belt? I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't give up. He's gotten easier through the years, but it wasn't like I won. I was a purple belt for 7 years, and that was my fault probably because I didn't train as much for those years. But then I was a brown belt for a year and a half, I believe. But I won Nogi Worlds, and then I won Pans, and he still didn't give me my black belt. And it was like 6 months later or something. Maybe it was 2. I don't know. And finally, I got it.
What was that ceremony like? What was that day like?
That was cool.
You being the first, was it like?
Yeah, I take pride in that a little bit, but Todd's also like I got promoted with Todd, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and then he wasn't. I guess he took a little. He didn't take a break, but he was busy and he didn't get it with me. But basically, he got it right with me, like just right after, like months.
Yeah, I didn't know the relationship with Todd Fox either. That's the crazy part is like when you introduced me to Todd Fox, you're like, hey, you should have this guy on. He knows a lot about these things. And Hal reached out because I remember I said on Facebook, I was like, I want to talk to someone about law enforcement. And Hal was like, you got to have Todd Fox. And I remember I asked you, I was like, do you know who Todd Fox is? And you're like, yeah, I know who Todd Fox is.
Todd's something else. Todd's really smart. Like he's too smart sometimes, and he speaks a bunch of languages. He works with Pink Floyd. He's worked with Madonna, Janet Jackson.
Yeah, I didn't realize how legit he was.
Yeah,
it was after the fact. I remember I didn't do enough due diligence, Mike. When he came in, I realized how like green I was at like podcasting because like he came in and he's like, hey, just so you know, I've been on a couple podcasts. Like this should be different. That should be different. This should be different.
Yeah, he doesn't hesitate to tell you when you're screwed up.
No, it was helpful. Yeah. It was helpful.
That's Todd. He give me if I asked him, hey, what do you think's wrong with my gym? He would probably give me a whole book. Here you go. Read this. I can't read Todd. It's like that's just who he is.
What is the camaraderie like with you, Hal, Todd, Berger? I know you guys are friends, but you guys in a lot of ways came up in this like niche before it was popular. Do you feel any sort of like affinity or like bond with them, considering you guys were in the trenches together?
Yeah. I mean, the original group, the original blue belts in St. Louis, I think, was me and Steve Berger, Todd Fox, Hal, and Brian Guidry. I think that was the first 5. There were, I think nobody else was even training jiu-jitsu in St. Louis. And there's definitely I got a picture of us up with our blue belts, and we didn't get them all at the exact same time, but pretty close.
It's interesting. I didn't know the history, and the more I talked to various other people, the more I kind of pieced the puzzle together.
Yeah.
And then it just made me think about how little I knew, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Think how long he's been. He started in 1996. How many years is that?
Rodrigo started in 1996. Yeah. It would be what?
30?
Yeah. No,
almost
close. Like 28 years. 28 years. Because it's 2024, right? So.
It'll be 2025 next week.
Fair. So 29 years. You're right. May I ask, throughout the years, people have kind of come and tried to do their own thing. Like, Jeff Henry, for instance, had his own gym and then kind of assimilated to
Jeff didn't have his own gym. He worked for, he helped out Dustin Severs.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like Jeff's got his own gym now, basically, with my gym. I mean, it's basically,
That's what I was going to ask.
But, yeah, at the time, he had started out with Dustin Severs, and whenever I don't know what he did over there. It was Dustin's gym. Jeff didn't need, he makes good money. He didn't need to. He didn't need to open a gym.
He did it as a passion, not as like a means of income.
Yeah, he wasn't hurting for money. So he just was out helping out. And then he took a break and he was coaching his son's hockey. He coached like really high level hockey, like junior blues hockey.
I had no idea.
Yeah, his son's a really good hockey player. So he went on with him. And then when that was over, he came back to our gym, started working. I think we started working with you first.
Yeah. He was like I remember when I was at Saint Charles MMA, I had Reginald Murphy as a boxing coach who I went 5-0 with. Mm-hmm. And then I had Jeff Henry as like my MMA coach and the thing I liked about both of them is like how well they worked together. Because like Reggie would work on my striking. I don't know if you recall, but I remember the first day you were like, hey, you're a pretty good wrestler, but your stand-up kind of sucks. So we're going to make you do like golden gloves, and we're going to make you do these amateur boxing matches to get you comfortable on the feet. Yeah. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, man, my stand-up doesn't suck. Boy, did my stand-up suck. It wasn't until I had a good boxing coach that I was like, oh yeah, I was awful. But it was also nice knowing that like all the coaches were like, I really felt like everyone was in like a symbiotic relationship where like everyone kind of understood. Jeff understood what he was doing in his place.
But Jeff's a great striking coach. It's just that he wasn't coaching the boxing team. You know, he's a great striking coach. He could coach boxing.
Well, he's a great coach. Right. Jeff is an amazing coach.
Right.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is he was like intelligent enough to realize that the instruction came from you to do boxing, right? So like a lot of the training that I did with him was more catered towards like, we're not going to work the most striking. We're going to work like explosive maneuvers, but a lot of like transitions to the ground, things like that. And then he would let me kind of really flourish with Reggie. And then once I was kind of quote unquote done with amateur boxing, and then when I went to Jeff, then he really like opened the repertoire of things that he was going to show me. But I was just very, because I only had Jay D'Amato before that.
Actually, you know, if you'd have stayed with Jeff, his style would have been perfect for you. His style was, yeah.
I liked Jeff a lot, and I thought he was very intelligent. And same with Reggie. Is Reggie still doing it? How's he doing?
He does boxing in his basement.
Does he?
Yeah.
It just had I remember he told me, he's like, I have no interest in coaching professional boxers. And I was like, why? I was like, I thought you were a pretty good coach. Like, why wouldn't you want to do with pros? And he's like, I'm not interested. He was just like, the thought of coaching pro boxers was just not his shtick. And I one day I'd like to sit down and ask him like why that was. I didn't feel old enough to, you know, poke and prod. So I was like, okay, Reggie, like whatever you want to do, man. Like I'm not gonna. But now I'd really like to sit down with him and be like, why wouldn't you? I thought he was a great coach, and Jeff Henry, I do agree that he is a phenomenal coach. Probably one of the best coaches here in St. Louis, if I'm not gonna be honest with you, in terms of like understanding the game both physically and mentally. Because that was the other thing. A lot of the techniques he showed me were like, hey, in the second and the third round, some of these things will work a little bit better because the guy will have like the lactic acid buildup, or he'll have that adrenaline dump, and then suddenly these maneuvers kind of start opening up. Things that me at 21 I never really thought about, because my mentality was always, you know, wrestling. Like I'm just gonna get you tired, I'm gonna work you, and then I'm gonna beat you. But he was like, hey, let's work smarter, not harder. He was the first coach that made me kind of start thinking about that.
Yeah, he was a big part of the second. I would say we had three groups at Saint Charles. The first group would be in like Tyron, Lance Benoist, Josh Sampo, Alpo Skulich.
Did Chandler ever come through the gym?
He come and visit. He came in through a few times, but nothing really, crazy. Not to train, not to be part of the team or anything. And then Andrew Sanchez was part of the team. Matt Ricehouse, EJ Brooks. I think that would be. There's some other guys, but
the first class.
That was the first group that signed with the big promotion. So they all either signed with UFC, Strikeforce, or Bellator. And then the second group, Jeff was a big part of the second group. So Jeff came in with he was working with EJ Brooks a lot, who signed with Bellator, and Luis Pena, Cortavius, Romeus, Charles Johnson, Lucas Clay, Brittany,
Cloudy,
and those because he doesn't have time to work with too many people. He has to schedule his time around. You know.
What do you think about that from your perspective as like you're kind of the aggregator of all this talent, both in terms of coaching and fighters, right? But obviously you can't coach everybody. There's not enough hours in the day.
I got to run classes.
Yes.
In order to coach everybody, I have to run classes. The only way you can coach everybody is if you run the class. So if you're just the one-on-one coach, you can't coach everybody. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You have to be the guy that, you know, me and Jake run the classes. And we talked to Jeff the other day. Like, Jeff, you have to get in on the classes, because the only way you can coach everybody is being in the classes. It's impossible to, there's not enough time in the day and you don't have energy, old man, you know? So yeah, he agreed, he's going to start doing a little bit of that. So
how do you pick, or what's the calculation in your head of how to best utilize a coach? And that's kind of a loaded question because it depends on the coach.
I let them do it.
Oh.
I let them decide. They're volunteers. I mean, Jake's not. Jake's kind of is. But they're volunteers mostly, and so I always knew I was going to I never thought I could run the whole thing myself, so I didn't put my name on the gym. like it's not Mike Rogers MMA, it's Saint Charles MMA, because I knew that we were, even when I first started, it was me, Rodrigo, and a coach named Fawad. You know who that is?
Muay Thai coach.
Yeah. So he was our striking coach.
I remember he taught Samir Pilipovic.
Maybe.
Yeah, when I was coming up, I was like the one guy from Jay's.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, Fawad came from Ron Smith, who is probably the father of Muay Thai in St. Louis. And then, so anyway, yeah, that was our coaches, Fawad, me, and Rodrigo. And then,
so even from the beginning, you knew that even though this was like going to be your gym, you could not do it all yourself.
I was the only one that coached at my gym at that time.
Got you.
I mean, it was 30 feet by 18 feet. It wasn't. Oh, it was 60 feet by 30 feet.
It was enough, though.
Yeah.
You said Rodrigo was a coach for you as well? Would he come up and...
No. All our guys would go down there.
Got you. And
yeah,
you
or a lot of them started with him. So, Rice House, Lance Benoist started with him.
Got you. When you were
Andrew Sanchez started with him.
When you first decided to open up your own gym, what was the conversation like with Rodrigo? Just like, hey, I want to do something.
Yeah, I want to open a gym, and but I want to go far enough away that you're not going to be worried that I'm competing with you and taking whoever. And I said, what do you think about St. Charles? And I had only been out to St. Charles a handful of times. I didn't, from South County. He says, okay, yeah, open a gym. And then he said, you can have Big Kyle, you can have just certain guys, and they can come train with you, and they live out there, and I'll give you their contracts. Start it out.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Considering, everybody else I hear in business is like always arguing about this, that, or the other.
Well, I mean, in this business, a lot of guys leave and they open a gym next door to where, their coach is at, and try and take their students.
Was that a conversation you had with Kirk Huff when he was getting ready to do his own thing as well? Was it like...
Yeah, I mean, to stay away from Rodrigo and stay away from... Well, he wanted to go... He's in Arnold. That's plenty far away from him. But it wasn't really... We didn't have a hard conversation. It wasn't like... He knew. It wasn't like something that...
How do you feel about that aspect of like, and I asked Rodrigo this as well, but I'm interested to hear your perspective. You learned jiu-jitsu under someone, and then you went out and branched out, still with an affiliation, but also doing your own thing. And then you taught jiu-jitsu to people who then went out and did their own thing. Do you feel some sort of affinity to like Arnold BJJ? Do you consider them like a sister or a brother gym? Yeah. Or do you consider them its own thing and you're doing their own
it's their own gym, but I consider myself part of that gym. If they need anything, we're the same family.
That's beautiful. So. I want to kind of switch gears if you don't mind, because Saint Charles MMA it's not only known for its jiu-jitsu, it's actually, in my opinion, predominantly more known for its fighters in the world of mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. You were recently at the UFC Tampa in the corner of Joaquin Buckley, or with Joaquin Buckley. I know like it was like you, Jeff Henry,
I didn't corner him.
Yeah, Jeff Henry did? Yeah. Sorry, forgive me. I want to make sure I'm correct in what I'm saying, but it was like you, Jeff Henry, Lucas Clay, your son was there. Was there anyone else I'm leaving out?
Well, all Bucks guys. All of his original team, were there.
Edgar Dillard and all that.
Probably not his original team, but his team that he's assembled.
Yeah, and he feels comfortable with.
Yeah. So the team he had in St. Louis, I mean, he got one extra coach, and that was Jeff. Gotcha. So before it was 3, and now for that one they got 4.
Because he was the main event. Makes sense.
Right.
What was that conversation like with Buck coming to you to say that he wanted to do his camp in proximity with Saint Charles MMA?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff called him up.
Oh, Jeff Henry called?
He called him and said, hey, you need to come and train with us.
Was he in town at the time, or was he still training up? I think he was training up
north? No, he left up there. He wasn't happy with their camps.
Gotcha.
And also, he's a family man. He's like he's got 2 kids, and he's pretty active in his kids' lives.
I did not know about Joaquin's personal life until the UFC did that like behind the scenes. It wasn't embedded. It was like, where they kind of shadowed the people. It was him and Colby. I had no idea he had two kids. I knew he had a kid. I had no idea he had two kids. I had no idea that his son had special needs. I had no idea that, he was trying to change his life to be there more. And I think that trying to manage camps away from family, I'm sure that was only difficult for him. So when Jeff had the conversation with him, did he have a conversation with you beforehand, or did he kind of take the
He
initiative?
just called him up and said, "Hey, come on out." It was pretty. I don't think it was a complicated situation.
Yeah.
Come on out and train.
Well,
I'll come and train.
He also trains with Charles Johnson. I know that Charles and Buck talk a little bit, so I'm sure that that kind of smooth.
He doesn't train with Charles anymore. I mean, that's where they were at with Mercy Lago.
Yeah.
And I don't think Charles.
No, I meant Buckley trained with Charles Johnson a little bit.
Right.
At Joaquin Murcielago, not necessarily Jeff Henry. Forgive me.
Right. Well, it wasn't. I don't think it was a. It wasn't in depth. Probably wasn't that in depth of conversation. Come and train.
Gotcha.
We feel like we can help you. And we then after that was for his last fight with Wonder Boy.
Yeah.
So and then after the Wonder Boy fight, we're like, hey, we want you to come train full time with us, And so he did he did half his camp with Wonder Boy and then his full camp for this last one with us.
Cool.
And I think that there's a lot of things that we could help. We did help him on, and we have helped him on. And I think there's a lot more. He can get a lot better. He's one guy that can get a lot better.
He's physically gifted by everything God can give a man: explosiveness, cardio, but also the guy's a sponge. Every gym he's gone to, he's gotten better with. And
Man,
now
he's driven to. He trains 3 times a day.
Yeah.
He's doing 10 rounds in training, 10 5-minute rounds. Night in a row, and I'm like, most guys would couldn't come back the next day and train like that. He's running, he's working, he's doing his weightlifting. He's working with Travis Brown after that, doing
strength and conditioning.
I think he does strength and conditioning with his guy from Michigan, and he sends him down workouts, and he does it on his own. He does it. Sometimes he comes to Saint Charles and does it, and sometimes he does it at I think Club Fitness.
Wherever he
and
can.
then he works with Travis Brown for his just to stay healthy.
Dietitian or nutrition, things like that.
Yeah, that I think kind of like just stretching him out and rehabbing his injuries and
just the complete package.
He's
chiro, massage, nutrition.
I think Travis he's getting his doctorate in kinesiology. I mean he's a complete package. So
it's a good guy to have under your belt, a UFC, a ranked UFC fighter on the up and up.
Yeah,
only looks good on your resume.
So then at nighttime he was coming to Saint Charles to train for
You've had Julius Anglickas at the gym for a while now, and every person I've talked to from Saint Charles MMA is kind of in agreement that Julius is kind of like the team captain or something like that, like a mentor to some of the younger fighters.
Yeah.
And he's been at the highest level at Bellator, fighting Vadim Nevkov and so on and so forth. Phil Davis.
His last 3 losses are to Nemkov, who was the number 1 fighter in the world at 205. At least he was at the time. Jones wasn't at 205 anymore, and the UFC champion was who was the UFC champion?
At 205
the older
was
dude, the older guy,
Glover Teixeira.
Glover Teixeira.
Or
it was Glover.
It was Glover.
And so Nemkov was the number 1 guy. He made it into he dropped him in the first round. He won the first round, and then he lost, and then he got submitted in the 4th.
Also, was a late replacement for that one, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
he didn't have a full camp.
I don't remember. Maybe he was in shape, so it was.
Well, that's because he's always in shape.
Yeah, he's always in shape.
Yeah.
It was. I don't think that was any type of excuse.
When you're talking about Julius isn't in shape, like what? He had an 8-pack instead of a 10.
But then he got injured and he lost to Phil Davis decision, but he was hurt. And then the last guy, I won't even attempt to say his name, is the guy. He's in the finals of PFL, and for fighting for $1 million. But he's a Russian dude, and his name is longer than. I don't know his name. But
not gonna take a stab
but
at
he's,
it.
it's not like he hasn't lost any chumps.
No,
so,
he was at the highest level of Bellator.
So after that fight with a Russian, he took like a year off because he was injured. His collarbone it just wasn't healing. I guess there's not a lot of blood that gets there, anyway. It wasn't healing. So he took all that time out. He came back. He won a kickboxing match. He stopped the guy, and then he just finished the guy who fought for the title in LFA.
Yeah.
In an MMA match, and
Knocked him out bad.
Yeah,
a little slip rip. It was beautiful.
You can't get him a fight though. It's almost impossible. Nobody wants to fight him. Like, we try and get, if they're not in the UFC, and then UFC doesn't want him because he's got 3 losses in a competing, promotion in a row. So it's been hard for him. He is signed with GFL now.
Oh, really?
So yeah, but they have a draft.
Yeah.
So he has to be drafted.
That's the one that Tyron's talking about as well, right? Like making his return.
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. GFL, I don't know.
It's like a brand new promotion that's trying to sign a bunch of guys and trying to compete. Like what? Like a Bellator, like a PFL, right?
Something. I don't know. GFL.
I haven't
that's
heard.
all I know.
Yeah, I haven't heard of them at all until
they signed Tyron. They had a huge.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you know the owner? Like
I don't.
I have no idea where this came from.
No, there's a manager. Julius has a manager, and the manager's kind of signed up. Lucas Clay signed with him too.
Oh, God bless.
So
that's another guy too. That's like, I trained with Lucas, but then after I talked with him on the podcast, it was the same way I felt after I talked to Dakota Bush. You couldn't help but like want him to succeed, and you're like a fan of him as like a person.
And the UFC just doesn't want him, so that's a huge problem. So hopefully he'll get signed with GFL. If they don't want you, they're not gonna bend. They're not gonna go for it. I think one problem is I'm learning is it doesn't matter. You don't need to take tough fights as a beginner pro. You don't have to take a tough fight until you get into contenders.
Yeah.
You could be a turd killer.
Isn't that kind of like counterintuitive though? Because I
always thought you're supposed to beat the best guys to get to the best level, but that's not the case.
Mike, I thought the exact same thing, and I was proven wrong.
Right.
So I don't necessarily think that's a good path for MMA.
Yeah, I mean they want guys that are going to finish people, and if they're not good, then they'll get weeded out in UFC. But they want guys that are going to be exciting. So they want to see guys that are going for submissions, going for knockouts, and getting them. And then if they're really good, it doesn't really matter. It only matters if they're good, if they're going to make to the top level. If they got all these wins with finishes, they'll get exposed and get finished.
Yeah.
By the guys that are in the UFC. But they want guys going for finishes, and that's it.
What do you think of the Contender Series?
I like the Contender. I like it.
As a consumer, do you like it as a coach?
I don't watch any fights. So
really?
No. So I watch fights at the shows I go to. And sometimes if I know somebody in a show, I'll watch it. Other than that, I'm in a show all the time, so it's like, I don't want to pay for it. I'll watch my son watches it, so now I watch a little more than I used to. But yeah, Contenders is cool. I mean, it gives guys an opportunity, to make it. No, Julius didn't. Julius fought on Contenders. He won, but they didn't take him.
Yeah, because he won a decision, and they were saying like, "You're not." Yeah. I remember Dana saying something along the lines of like, "You're not what we want," and I was just like.
They offered him a contract after his next fight. He beat one of Dean Thomas's guys in Bellator, and they called him the next day to offer him a contract. But that night, Bellator offered him a contract. So
that was better.
No, it was just first, and he already signed.
Oh,
it's not better.
Well, actually, you know what though? Hindsight being 2020, I never want to talk about conversations that I've had in confidence with people on the podcast or with anybody, right? Because I have them in confidence. But from what I've gathered, from what Julius has told me, it was a financial boon to his life.
He made a lot of money.
He made a lot of money, and it was the right choice to make when you're looking back in hindsight. Yeah. A lot of guys, especially Julius, because like Julius made all that money and he still lives like a minimal lifestyle. Like
he's got the same car.
He didn't change anything.
He hasn't made a lot of money in the last couple of years though, a little bit, So, but yeah, there's years he was making. Well, every fight he was making over 6 figures, so and more than he would have been in the UFC. But in the UFC, he'd probably still be in there. At the time, Bellator I think had a better lineup at 205.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And at 45 for a minute there, but that's just what do I know. So, What was the whole problem, to your knowledge, with like Bellator and PFL, the merger, or the what is going on with that? Does Julius know anything?
No, he doesn't. Well, I think what happened was Bellator was going. I think Paramount owned them. They were just
They wanted to
they were
liquidate
done. They wanted out of it, and I think they just gave the
the
name to
contract.
PFL. I think they just gave everything to them, and I could be wrong. I think they gave it all to them for like future considerations, and they're still doing PFL. I mean Bellator fights in Europe.
Everything I'm seeing is fighters on Bellator being increasingly uh, more and more agitated at the lack of opportunities to perform and to fight.
Yeah, they don't have any. There's no. Well, PFL's running it all, running the whole show. I don't know. I haven't had
Yeah, me
anybody on
neither.
there. I don't know how it works. I know they do. I don't know.
I
I've
just think
never
it's
had a
so
guy on
weird, right?
PFL.
You have all these fighters, so like the main roadblock or the main hindrance, the main hurdle for promotion is like the talent. You have the talent. The everything else is like peanuts compared to getting the fighters.
I didn't understand why I'm sorry. I didn't understand why Bellator, being owned by Paramount, didn't do more promoting and more like UFC does. I mean, they're on everything, but
Yeah.
Paramount, they didn't seem like they put the effort into it. They could have done all kinds of shows. They had
I never knew
Yeah.
when there was a Bellator fight,
Right.
unless because I was following Julius on Instagram, that the only person on Bellator that I knew was going to fight was Julius.
Yeah.
There was never another Bellator fight
For
out.
a few years, they were doing really good. You know, whenever Zach Freeman fought at Madison Square Garden, and they had Fedor.
Aaron
Yeah.
Pico still wakes up in a cold sweat.
But I mean, they had Fedor. They had Henderson. They had a lot of really good.
No, they had the capacity to compete.
And they just then I feel like the guys that ran it just kind of lost interest. I'm talking about the owners, and
Coker?
not the owners. Well, I don't know for sure. I don't know. I don't want to. It just seemed like
We're speculating now.
they just lost a little interest in it. Like they weren't. The whole promotion when you go to it didn't seem that enthusiastic about anything.
I think the hardest thing about business is consistency. And that's why
Yeah.
I have so much reverence and respect for you, because you didn't do it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You're going to be closing in. Wait, you're at what? How many years now? 20 years?
In 2007, so like
You're getting close too,
Yeah,
man. You're almost
close.
you're
Yeah.
coming up on 20 years.
yeah,
Most gyms haven't made made it to a fraction of that.
yeah. No, there's no gyms left from whenever there were some good gyms too. They just kind of fade away.
CMAA went away, Burgers went away.
Oh man, there's just been so many. I don't know.
Pat Smith is basically done with the pit.
Yeah. Finney's is still around.
Is it though?
Well, Finney's they keep theirs open so they got guys to fight on their cards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I trained at Finney's, and I'll tell you that it was at the time exactly what I needed when I was there. I don't train anymore, so I can't really say. I've been removed for 2 years now. I don't really know what this coaching staff or anything like that looks like. But I remember when I was there, I will say this about Finney. He gave me free reign to run my camps the way I wanted to. I could pick the guys that I wanted to. So in a lot of sense, I did feel very empowered when I was there. But every gym has its pros and cons. Every gym I've been to has the things that they do exceptionally well, the things that they can work on. But also, I've never fucking owned a gym. So it's easy for me to kind of like, oh, this should change, that should change. It's like, I never had to put this shit together. I never had to get the respect of a coaching staff to come in and under my banner.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know anything about Finney's, what they do on day to day. All I know is that they're the only ones left.
From when you started.
Yeah.
They stood
And
the
they were
test of
before me
time.
too.
Yeah.
So that's all I know. You know.
What are you shooting for next with Saint Charles MMA? Like,
We keep moving forward, you know, and it's the same. We have a really good group of kids now. I mean, like I said earlier, like we're in our third group. I would consider, you know, there's some overlaps. We're on our third group, and I think this group's really good. A lot of them have a good shot at making it to the show. So that's our goal, you know. And then on the jiu-jitsu side, it's like a family. Like those guys, they're like we have moms and dads and kids that come, and it's great. You know,
I didn't realize how tight-knit the jiu-jitsu community that you've developed was until I had Kyle on, and then Alejandro Wajner messaged me and was like, dude, Kyle's the fucking shit. Kyle's the reason I fell in love with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
He was so like, and I was just like, it never dawned on me that, you know, people can kind of gravitate towards one another. And it was never, I was training with Alejandro and I never even saw that relationship spark. But then when Alejandro was explaining it to me, I'm like, the things that I had with Reggie or with Jeff, other people had with other people, with Keely, with Carlitos, with Alan Smith, whoever it was. You know what I mean? The relationships, the bonds were being built before my eyes, and even if I wasn't even paying attention to it. But that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I know that you have a good group of kids, but like, forgive me, let me ask the question a little differently. You know, from when you started to now, you're 17 years, it'll be 18 next year. What is like the next chapter? Like, do you want to do the same thing going forward? Just produce the best fighters? Yeah. Do you want to like
that might be better.
But what does that mean?
Keep going.
What does better mean to you? That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, do you want new mats? Is new mats better? Do you want a new facility?
I don't care about any of that stuff.
You don't care about, okay, that's what I was trying to say.
I mean, it would be cool to get a sponsor. It'd be neat to have a sponsor, because we got great coaches now. I mean, we're in our third set of coaches as well. You know, like we were talking earlier, you know, we were talking about had Fawad and Rodrigo, and then Quentin O'Brien and Patrick Christie came in.
For Muay Thai guys.
For Muay Thai. And Matt Ricehouse was coaching for a long time. And now, and then it was back to me for a while. Now it's Jimmy Donahue, Jake Roberts, and Jeff Henry. And Jeff, in a lot of ways, Jake's doing a lot of stuff I used to do.
What does that mean?
He's running classes. He's running the MMA. He's running the team classes, doing a lot of that. He's getting a lot of matches for guys. He's working with a lot of guys that won't ever make it to the big show.
But they're still.
He's giving everybody a lot of time. He spent a lot of time and he's getting better at coaching. So
he's kind of like the antithesis of the other thing that I was saying, right? Is like when something is not your sole income, then you can run things in a laissez-faire attitude, because like if you don't necessarily make money, or if you lose a little bit of money, as long as it's not too much money, you can still kind of like make it. Does that make sense? Like if I have a company and I'm clearing all my bills and I'm doing fine with that, and it affords me the luxury of maybe I take like a $200-300 a month hit on this thing that's my passion, I can take that hit, right? But Jake is seemingly trying to balance that this is like his sole income.
Yeah, he does everything, but he makes all the private money. He keeps everything. All the fighters, if they pay out after a fight show, he gets all that money.
That's very fair.
He gets, and he does a lot of privates.
Yeah.
So
good for him.
I don't think he's not a millionaire. That's for sure.
But
he does okay.
It's enough to live.
Yeah. I mean, he can make as much money as he wants to make. He can charge whatever he wants, and he keeps every dime.
So. Do you think that doing the classes helps with something like that? Because it's kind of like, in a way, kind of advertising the skill set. Imagine, for instance.
Maybe, but he's doing it because he wants to get great fighters. And his name's on the gym. I mean, his name's on the gym. It's Saint Charles MMA, which is, Jimmy Donahue and Jeff and me and Kyle and Carlitos and Andrea, Travis Draper. I got so many coaches, That way, if one leaves, I can.
Oh, you guys are replaceable. That's so savage.
Yeah.
So then, if you don't mind me asking, and I don't want to ask this in a rude way, what do you do now then? Are you basically just coming in to give 2 cents?
I run the classes. I run a lot of the classes still.
Oh, okay. So you're still like a heavy duty coach. Like Jake's doing classes, but so are you.
And me and him are both at most of the classes.
Oh, so you guys kind of coach in tandem with one another.
Yeah, he does. I mean, it just depends. Some days I say I want to do it, and some days I don't feel like it. I say you want to do it, and it just depends on, I keep an eye on everything too. Yeah. I like, if a fighter needs something, like, hey buddy, this is, this guy he's neglecting us in a certain area, and tell the coaches, hey, watch out for that. Make sure that everything it's important that they know all the skills. So you can't forget about certain things in the team classes.
Would it be safe to assume that your main job now is to make sure that there's a certain threshold that is being met? You are the standard bearer. This is what is acceptable from the perspective of a coach for Saint Charles MMA, that you are setting the standard and upholding it.
But if only if the other coaches aren't holding the standard, but they do. So I don't have to, Jeff and Jake and Jamie, they hold a high standard, so I don't have to be like, oh man, you're not. If there's something that's neat, like during Bucks camp, if Jeff's doing a lot of the work and I'm like, hey, watch and say, hey, I think we should do this and do this. Jeff's like, all right, yeah, we need to do that. That's basically.
You'll still apply yourself, but from second person's perspective.
I don't have to.
Third person
I'm not
perspective.
Bossing him around. We talk about it. And,
yeah.
I mean, me and Jeff, we've been on a lot of long trips together, man. We've been on a lot of road trips, and we spend a lot of time together. We don't have to. I don't have to like tell him. He knows.
That's beautiful.
So.
Can I also ask, with the growth of the gym, because I might be wrong when I make this statement, but I don't think your gym has been stronger than it is today. Meaning the fighters that you have, especially with if Buck is quote unquote under the banner, so to speak, you got Buck, Julius, a slew of other guys. You've always had good fighters, even from the first generation with like Lance Benoist, right? And then you had Alp and Sampo. You've had many UFC fighters over the course of the years. When I talked to Steve Berger and when I talked to Pat Smith, I tried my hardest to give them the respect that I thought they deserved, but they would humbly bow down in perspective or in respect to you by saying, like, Pat was like, I've never created anything like Mike Rogers. And Steve would be like, yeah, my gym was fine, but Mike Rogers look what he's created. They stand kind of at attention for what you've created.
Maybe I think I had an advantage coaching because I wrestled. And I run my MMA classes like a wrestling practice. And I had a great high school wrestling coach that I kind of followed after what he did. Rocky Strad was my high school wrestling coach. And I do quite a bit. I run my practices quite a bit like his. I mean, it's a different sport, but structure like that is how I kind of.
The same mentality.
Structure. Not the mentality. It's the structure. It's the making sure that all bases are covered, and then having it hard nosed, like when we go live, there's no downtime, we don't do a lot of talking, we practice, so Jeff does a lot of talking. I take that back, but it's just straightforward, grinder. Practices are grinds.
Can I ask you another question regarding the team? And you were saying that we have a good group of guys now. I know that there's a lot of people kind of sent your way, right? Like maybe they're at a certain gym, they're thinking about going to another gym. You're usually the gym that people kind of recommend. How do you deduce whether or not someone is a good fit for your gym, the structure that you've created? Are you willing to take in someone that might not fit that mold?
Everybody's welcome.
Okay,
everybody's fit.
But if everyone's welcome,
if they're not good enough, they're gonna leave.
That's not where I'm gonna go with. Right. I'm talking about personalities. You say everyone's welcome, and I
I've
can
made
respect that.
I've made mistakes on keeping people that I shouldn't have, for sure. Believe me.
So then, how do you kind of deduce that now? Let me ask it in a better way. What is your threshold for who you accept and who you don't accept? Is it I welcome everybody, but then you kind of keep an eye on them and see how they do?
I don't remember the last person I kicked out. It might have been Andrew Sanchez. It's so long ago. I don't think I've kicked anybody out.
Damn.
Sometimes, whenever sometimes, and not MMA, but like in jiu-jitsu, I'll say, hey, go down to Kirk's gym for a couple months, or
Get
something
out of
like
my
that.
face.
Yeah. Or Kirk will do the same thing. Kirk will send
Okay.
someone up like, hey, I've had enough of you. Go up to Rogers. But I don't remember kicking anybody out. I could be wrong. I mean, we've had some wild dudes in the gym, man.
Dude, think about the kind of personalities that would come in and fight. I mean, you're dealing with a
Yeah.
wide delta. You're going to have, like, the mom and pop that wants to get in shape. You're going to have, like, law enforcement or first responders that want to, be as learned as they can for self-defense. You might have the fighter. You might have the hobbyist. Like, there's,
Yeah.
you have everybody under
I
your
remember I
roof.
kicked one guy out a couple years ago.
Don't have to
I'm not
say
gonna
his
give
name,
He
but
just- I
what
think
was,
he's
what
just
was the
crazy.
reason?
He was
just
crazy.
wild?
He's crazy. I mean, as a fighter, I kicked another guy out too that was crazy. Two crazy guys. They're crazy. Absolutely nuts.
This is not necessarily...
Just nuts, man. Just nuts. So, adios, amigo.
You've been in this world for a while now, and in that time, separated from Saint Charles MMA, you have a wife, you have kids, and your son, has kind of grown up surrounded by this.
He has.
sport.
He has just started training in wrestling and jiu-jitsu in the last
How old
couple
is he?
years.
13?
14.
14, sorry. So what is that,
In the last
freshman?
couple of years.
14
No,
is
he's in 8th grade.
8th grade, forgive me.
Yeah. He's right in the middle of the age for that grade. Anyway, he just started. For a while, he didn't want anything to do with it, so he was playing soccer, and he's done a lot of weightlifting. Now he's pretty hardcore into wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and he hasn't done very little. He hasn't really been I'm not a big fan of kids kickboxing and boxing.
Because of the head trauma?
Yeah, you see all these. You can see it if you go to boxing gyms, when you talk to boxing coaches, you can see it.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about football?
I don't know enough about that. How much he played? He started playing football this year too.
I think football is way more dangerous than
I didn't want him to play, but he did, and now he's out. He ended up being really good. So I thought, well, hell, he's going to be small. Or I thought I didn't know. I had no idea. I just said we just showed up to practice to see what happened, and by the end of the season, he was a starting quarterback. He started off they had him at strong safety, and then halfway through the season they moved him to running back, and then the last 3 games he played QB. So he's pretty good. So
I asked Rodrigo this, but I'm going to ask you as well, because you have a daughter and a son. I believe your son is older than your daughter, correct?
1 year, yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Is there any part of you, when you think of yourself, the kind of father you want to be, is there any part of you that wants to or hopes that your son will kind of follow in your footsteps? Do you hope that he doesn't necessarily gravitate towards the things that you did?
I think partially the reason the gym stays up is because sometimes I'm like, man, I can't do this anymore. But then I'm like, I'm not going to quit because I have a son. My daughter doesn't want to do it. So she has to do jiu-jitsu, but she's never going to want to run a gym. And I don't think that my gym's a place where, if he changed it up, he could make enough money to live off of. But I don't think that's going to be his course either. I don't know. Could be. If he wants to, it's his. But, there's,
So this is a legacy you'd like to leave behind if he was interested.
If he wants to.
St. Charles MMA.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want St. Charles MMA to ever close. If I decide not to do it, and then I would have somebody just run it. I'd just be like, here, Jake. Me and Jeff would retire.
Oh shit.
Yeah. But you were talking about
Your
when we started talking about earlier, you were asking me about bringing my son to the UFC.
Yeah.
And that was cool because, Buck doesn't only get so many corners, and he's not going to kick his regular guys out, which I wouldn't. So he's like, I'll give you seats, and we got seats. They're like $5,000 seats up front, and sitting next to
you, your son, Lucas Clay, you 3.
me, yeah, and and Robert Washington
Oh, okay.
was there. He got the seats too.
Oh man, that's a throwback. I haven't heard his name in a
Yeah,
minute.
he just came up, so he got seats.
Does he train at Saint Charles MMA or does
He
he
used to.
Okay.
No, he did. He trained at our gym 3 or 4 days a week for a couple of years.
But then he stepped away
He
from
moved to Texas.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
I think he works for Microsoft.
Oh,
He's executive.
Doing good.
Yeah.
God bless.
So that was cool, being up front and getting to see. And Buckley is so, like after the fight, Buckley came and like not upstairs, but when he walked out of the ring, ran over to us, gave us all hugs, gave Lucas a hug, my Lucas and the other Lucas. So that was really cool. And because in the past I've had fighters that are that good that are just kind of a little standoffish. They're a little bit. It's all about me. So he's not like that.
Buckley?
Buckley's not like that. So anyway, and the other part about that was the
whole trip.
The whole trip, but that card, I knew so many people on that card that from the old days that I got to introduce to my son. So
yeah, I saw that's why I kind of brought it up was I saw your post, and I oftentimes whenever I see things on social media, it's like I try to gravitate towards the things that aren't said or whatever. You didn't really post a whole lot of pictures of yourself. You didn't really post a whole lot of pictures of other things, but you posted a whole lot of pictures of your son meeting these certain people and interacting with these certain people. And that's kind of why I was saying to you, like,
yeah, and he didn't. Yeah, I got to introduce him to a bunch of people that I've known for a long time that I don't necessarily see a lot, but like Brendan Allen, who is Patrick Christie's nephew. It's weird that
I did not know that.
So he's been up to the gym quite a bit, and I got to corner him a couple times when he was an amateur, and he came to St. Louis, so I got to. And then Tuco Chocos, who's a Killcliff guy. He's
South
a great
Beach, right?
guy.
Florida?
It's in Florida. I don't know where it's at in Florida.
It's changed names a bunch.
Yeah. And then Dustin Jacoby.
Yeah.
From St. Louis. I got to introduce him to Dustin.
Who also had an amazing performance that night.
And Michael Johnson.
Who also had an amazing performance
that
night.
It's the only I don't know that many UFC fighters, but they're all on one card, so that was pretty cool.
Will this one go down as one that you remember, that UFC Tampa card?
Oh,
in terms of like the event?
I remember all the UFCs. I mean, I haven't been to that many. So
more than most, man.
Yeah. So, but I would, yeah, I it's fun going to UFC, but I just haven't been to as many as I'd like to be. It'd be better to. I wish I had been able to go to more, but.
You've been to a couple throughout time, right? So like Lance, when Lance was in the UFC.
Yeah, I cornered all my guys in the UFC, but Lance, and also everybody I've cornered has won the fighter of the night. So then UFC, so Lance Benoist won fighter of the night, Josh Sampo won fighter of the night, Alpo Oskalic won fighter of the night, Luis Pena won fighter of the night, and then I cornered Charles, but he didn't win. So
would it be, and if you don't want to talk about this, we don't have to, but what happened with Luis and you?
He just decided to move. So.
Got you.
That was it. Yeah, he just decided to, he had lived in the gym.
He lived at the gym for years.
I want to say almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And then he got signed to the Ultimate Fighter show.
Yeah.
And he cut in with AKA, and he's like, hey, I'm just going to move to California. So, which was, he had caused a lot of problems at the gym. So I really liked Luis, man. I really liked him. But there are people, some people he ruffled their feathers. So I wasn't, but he took Cortavius with him, and that was I was bummed. Court was my buddy, and that was the one that really I didn't.
Do you still talk to him now, Cortavius?
Court, a little, not a lot.
What about Luis?
No.
Not at all?
I don't. I would. I just don't.
Got you. It's not like the bridge has been burned.
No.
Phone's on.
He burned bridges with other people at the gym.
But not necessarily you.
Not really.
Have you kept in when guys like that happen, like a Luis or a Cortavius, how do you look at that like relationship? Do you kind of isolate yourself from it? Like, okay, whatever, they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna pay attention to it.
Cut it off.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Kind of like a bad breakup.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I just don't. I unfollow them. I don't unfriend them. I just unfollow them on Facebook or
We've been down
whatever.
this road.
Yeah, and I just like I got to move forward this way. I'm not looking at that.
Yeah.
You know. I wasn't. It wasn't such a big deal for Luis. I was sad about Cortavius. So
Why specifically that then? If you don't mind me asking, like, what's the
well,
compare and contrast?
I worked with Cortavius every day, and I was around him all the time.
You just put a lot of time into him.
I was just around him a lot, like every day. Like I'd pick him up and take him to work with me every day. Like he was roofing with me.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So and I liked him. I really liked Court. So
He's
I still
a cool
do.
guy.
I just gel. I liked him. I like him. I still like him, but yeah.
Huh. That makes me feel kind of like a cunt too.
I didn't like you as much as Court, dude.
Hey, that's fair, brother. I wouldn't like me as much as Court either.
I mean, it's a totally different situation, you know. Court lived in the gym too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Court, I mean, when I say Court, we did everything together. Like I would pick him up every day.
At the gym to go roofing, and then he would train at the
yeah,
gym.
or I'd pick him up at his dad's house, and we go, and then I'd take him to training. You know.
How long did Court stay with you, if you don't mind me asking?
He was, I don't remember, I don't know, a couple of years. Yeah.
Sorry, we kind of deviated a little bit. Forgive me. I went down a rabbit hole. Mike, I don't want to make this all about Saint Charles MMA, but it's just so like attached to you. But the last question I wanted to ask you regarding martial arts was actually that, like the generations of UFC fighters that you've had. So you had the Lance, which was like Gen 1. Sampo would be what, Gen 2? And then maybe now.
No, Lance and Sampo were the same time.
You think so?
I don't have the Gen 3. Gen 3 is getting ready.
Right now, it's cooking.
Yeah, it's cooking. So like the first generation was Woodley. He was the first guy, and he was with Strikeforce. So, but at the time, Strikeforce was
direct competitor to the UFC.
I mean, they were more exciting than the UFC at the time. It had the more. I don't know if they had better fighters, but they certainly had more exciting fights.
Well, a lot of the guys went on to be UFC champions.
Yeah, they were awesome. Strikeforce was cool, and so Tyron, and he left because he wanted to open it. He opened his own gym.
ATT Evolution.
Yeah, and he kind of gave me the ultimatum. Hey, you're going to have to close your gym and then come be my coach at the new gym, kind of thing. So at the time, and I was
wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't. I got upset. He wasn't.
Yeah, brother.
He never really got upset. He was just like.
That's a bold statement. Like, close your gym, be my coach.
Yeah.
How'd that conversation go? Maybe. Not that well. You guys still talk to each other, so obviously.
We were gone. We didn't talk for a long time. In the last 6 months, we really gotten.
That's what I was gonna say, because he's been back at the gym too, and I
he's
talked to Lucas about that.
Yeah.
So obviously, you seem like the kind of guy who, like you said it, you don't really burn bridges.
Well, with him, I was younger, and I probably wouldn't have handled it the same way now. I know I wouldn't. I feel like I've made a mistake. So, how I handled it. So, I mean, I'm not saying he was right, but I'm just saying the way I handled it was not zen.
Gotcha. You were a little bit more emotional.
I was younger. I mean, that was what 2009 or 10. Well, his last fight with us was Andre Galvao.
It's Strikeforce.
So I think he has like 9 fights in to his pro career and then his amateur.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did a lot. We went to a lot of fights together. I mean, we were at the first pro fight in Pennsylvania. We went to that fight. He was on that card, and then he got signed up to Strikeforce right away, like his second or third fight.
Well, you coached him in high school, junior, senior year. He would then go on to wrestle at Mizzou. Mm-hmm. When he was done wrestling at Mizzou, you then coached him immediately for MMA. Is that how that worked?
He was doing American. He was at American Top Team in Columbia too. Before that,
and what, bouncing back and around, or
no, he just came. He just I lived there.
Got you.
And as soon as he got out of Columbia, he came to our gym. So he was with us for those fights, and then at the time I was like, dude, I can't. I don't have the horses for you. We're gonna have to go somewhere else. So we took a lot of trips. We went to
To do cross
to find
training?
him. No, to find him a gym to be like a gym that would be suitable to do camps at. Because this is 2007 and 2008. I didn't have any fighters that were pro.
Oh, like at Tyron's level to give him work.
Lance Benoist could have been, but he was still a little young. He was younger.
He was cooking.
He was still in a baker. So we went over to Hit Squad, Mark Fiore. I think he went to California, a couple places. I didn't go with him. And we went to American Top Team down in Florida, and that's where I was like, Laborio's down here. I was a big Laborio fan from his Gracie days with Carlson Gracie. So, because Rodrigo was a big Laborio fan too. So, so it kind of hammered that out. That was a decision to make.
I felt so bad because Rodrigo had to do a little bit of an education seminar for me with like the jiu-jitsu history because I was like, I didn't really know. If that makes sense?
Yeah, I should have given you some questions before.
No, I'm kind of glad you didn't. I had an idea of how that conversation was going to go, and I think it was one of our better episodes. Even though I had never sat down and talked to Rodrigo, it was like off to the races with the very first question. He was so comfortable and relaxed, and it was funny because you're not like the most social one in the room. However, I've seen you talk to everyone, if that makes sense. So you're not the kind of guy that's going to go up to everybody and start a conversation, but I've seen you have conversations with like people that I thought would have nothing in common with you, and then the people that I thought would have nothing in common with you from a different direction. You seem to be in proximity with everybody, and that's the same vibe that I got with Rodrigo. Like, I think if you put Rodrigo down, he could get along with anybody pretty much.
Yeah.
As long as the moral character was there, right? If it wasn't, then different story. He was an interesting guy.
For sure.
The reason I was asking about the trajectory of the fighters was simply because you've seen this sport grow. Not just the UFC, but you've seen Strikeforce come and go. You've seen Bellator now, forgive me, for all intents and purposes, almost come and go. And then when you were at the last UFC in Tampa with Buck, to see the stage and everything like that, how has the trajectory or the change in MMA been for you? Did you ever see the sport getting this big? Did you ever see the sport getting to where it's at now?
I guess I didn't think about it that much, but I guess it's probably NFL than UFC, right? I don't know. You think that's about it?
Pretty much. I mean, they're breaking the records at all these arenas.
UFC does.
I think $5,000 seats is kind of insane, though. If I'm going to be completely honest with you,
I'm not buying them.
I'm not buying them. Fuck that.
Yeah,
maybe they do that on purpose just so that they know they're going to have them.
I mean, there's rich people. There's a lot of rich people, I guess. So
that's fair.
The guy sitting behind me, he told me how much the seats were because.
Could you imagine? You buy a ticket for like $5,000 to go to this UFC event, and the guy in front of you is like, "Hey, how much did you buy these tickets for? We got them for free," and it's Mike Rogers.
I didn't ask him. I mean, we were talking. And he was talking to. No, I was listening to him talk, and I just said something to him. It's like, he was telling his girlfriend about how much money he spent on the tickets. So we were the second row, and then there was a barricade behind us.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're the main event, you get great seats.
You get all the perks.
And then, in the section next to us, there was like UFC Hall of Famers and UFC fighters.
Well, how much were you hoping Donald Trump made an appearance?
I was really hoping. I mean, the security was everywhere. I thought, this is
really. Oh, did you think like?
I thought, well, he's got to come because
it's Florida.
I'll take pictures and send them to Todd Fox. So, what do you think? All these guys standing up every time. There was probably 30 security guards dressed like you and
just hanging around, making sure nothing was just
standing up and looking like security guards,
Well, I'll tell you what. I know ever since that United Healthcare CEO got shot, I have a group chat with people much wealthier than I am. And everyone, and you know, if there's ever a person that I want to have on again, it's also Todd Fox for two reasons. Because I want to ask him about the nuances about the assassination attempt, because none of the things that I've read or seen make any fucking sense to me. And then I also want to talk to him about the assassination attempt and like
Security for the
the way
CEOs.
Secret Service works, because I didn't realize that the Secret Service works in conjunction with local law enforcement as well. I always assumed like the Secret Service was like the creme de la creme, right? It's like it's FBI, CIA, and then if you can make the
Well,
cut,
I think they are, but you know,
are they though?
Well, it depends if they want to. If they want to.
If they want to be, yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you're
a
you know, if
30-degree angled slope,
if you're flying into St. Louis, you gotta call St. Louis City and coordinate things with the police department. So that's how they do that. You know?
I can understand that for like, you know, the like barricading roads and things like that. Duly noted. I thought for like an event, there's no fucking way. How does this happen? It's so crazy to me. But the reason I wanted to bring it up too was because Todd Fox is in the private security business, more so like high profile clients, right? So
yeah,
like, So I wanted to ask him.
This would be exactly what he does. So he doesn't he does tour. No, I'm sorry. He does tour security mostly. So what he does is
protecting VIPs in their.
Oh, it's like how to get into a venue, how it's set up inside. I think that some of them have more than one security system group. I don't know. You better ask him.
I want to. I want to have him on, but the only reason I asked was because I was thinking to myself like Tampa, Florida, the last UFC of the year. Maybe he makes an appearance. You know what I mean? And then you're down there.
That would have been. I was hoping he would. Like everybody was hoping. The place is full of the red hats, man. Everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, it was cool. It was neat. The whole venue, the whole thing was cool. It was fun to hang. You know, I knew a lot of people. My kid was enjoying it. You know, vibe with Buck's guys and Jeff, and you know Bellator used to not let anybody in the back rooms or any, you know, for the warm ups, and
UFC was different.
We had for his warm up, it was like me, my son, all his guys, Jeff, Rob Washington, a bunch of people that know Rob Washington, a wrestling coach from there's probably 20 guys in his warm up room.
And there's
not in his warm up room at the place, but at the hotel beforehand. Which you know they would never let that happen in Bellator.
Interesting how the paradigm shift.
But yeah.
Well, will it go down as one of your more favored ones that you've been to?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
God bless.
I enjoyed it. I mean, my favorite one probably is Lance Benoist. That was the first one that I forgot the guy's name that he beat. He wasn't supposed to win, and it was
his very first UFC appearance.
Yeah.
Was it because it was also yours?
No, it was just the fight was incredible. It was down in New Orleans, and we're walking out to House of the Rising Sun, which is kind of like the New Orleans song, and the crowd the crowd went wild whenever they heard that song. They didn't know who Lance was. That song came out, and everybody was kind of coming over the side of the railings when we're walking out. And Jake Ellenberger fought on that card too, and he's part of Team Vaghi, so that was cool. He was the main event versus.
I had no idea that Ellenberger was a part of Team Vaghi.
Yeah, so he was with.
How did we go to never say the fucking word
about it? Well, I mean, there's a lot of more guys that are Jake Roberts, not Jake. Anyway, Jake Ellenberger. Yeah, I think he stopped doing jiu-jitsu after he stopped doing fights. But
can I ask you another question that's kind of loaded, but forgive me, I have to because it's kind of you bringing it up. Rodrigo Vaghi said this of you, that you were one of the most naturally gifted athletes that he had ever seen, and that had you been passionate about fighting, that you could have gone and done whatever you wanted in the sport.
Maybe, but the problem there were some things that, you know, we didn't have an MMA gym. You know, he was a jiu-jitsu gym. He was open during jiu-jitsu hours. That was it. So I would go to North County Boxing for boxing, and then I would go I would go to jiu-jitsu, or I'd go to Merrimack Wrestling with Dave Mirkatani, and I would then I would go to jiu-jitsu afterwards. It wasn't like now. I didn't know how to fight in a cage, how to do takedowns off. There was nothing like that. And at the time, everybody was roided out. Like it was like my weight class was like Mark Kerr, Coleman. You know, it was like
Juice at the gills.
right. And
Were
also,
you always natural?
yeah. And also, I didn't know there was a lot of things. I didn't know how to get in touch with anybody to do fights. You know, it wasn't like just there was local guys, you know, local shows, and I would do them, you know, on a whim. You know, it wasn't like
You told me a story about how you went to California to fight somebody and you had to cut 50 pounds in 1 month.
I cut 17 pounds in a day.
In a day.
Yeah. And then that guy didn't make weight. It was Vernon White.
Yes, that's.
Yeah. And I lost a split decision in King of the Cage.
Yeah.
So King of the Cage was kind of like the Bellator of the time.
But it was also the local guy. You took it on a month's notice.
Yeah.
He recalled that story because he wanted to use that as like the metric for the kind of guy that you were. The way he described you was essentially like Mike was like his mental coupled with his physical, and that the only thing that you were missing was the passion of the sport, which I thought was kind of
I think that'd be
weird.
about right. I didn't have a passion for fighting, and I didn't have a passion for. Well, there was no money in it. It was just, you know, I fought for that title, and it was like 400 and 400. You know.
But actually, back then, that's not bad. I know guys that start
2000
now.
In 2000, 400 and 400 for a Bellator level fight.
What year was this?
2000.
That's not
For
bad.
a title fight in Bellator, I mean, nobody even knew what it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, you know, we knew what it was because
I know guys that make 300 and
But
300
you know,
now for the debut now today.
Right. But we're talking, you know, we're talking pay-per-view. You know, it was pay-per-view. It was you know, I met Joe Rogan was there.
No shit.
Yeah, I met Joe Rogan after the fight.
Back when he had hair.
Yeah.
When he was the Fear Factor guy.
Yeah.
Can I ask, when you have young fighters coming up, and this is kind of a tough question to ask, forgive me ahead of time, how do you have the conversation with fighters about the financials of it? Because I've had a couple fighters that have, you know, told me like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And I think to myself like, brother, you have no idea what the fuck you're getting into. You have no idea what this world is like, and you have no idea how little the money is until it's not.
I tell them that you're not fighting for the money.
Yeah.
At all. You're not. If they offer you 400 and 400, but you like to fight, that's what you're doing. 400, 400.
What do you get when you get the guys that think that this is going to be their calling and like this is like, forgive me, they don't have anything. They're putting all their chips in.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can.
If you don't like the fight, ask for more money. You know, if you like the fight, it's worth you need to get the win. You know, because you need to build your record if you want to get to the show.
Have you ever had to tell a guy that, hey, this isn't for you?
Probably, I don't. You know, they figure it out on their own.
Oh, so it's not necessarily something.
Well, they lose.
And it kind of just happens on their own.
Yeah, and then you know, even then, if you want to be a pro fighter and you're 500, you want to keep training. I'm not going to tell you to stop.
No, I think training is completely separate from the competition aspect, though, don't you? Like you
No,
can
I
train.
mean even competing. If they want to keep competing, you know, go ahead.
I don't know.
Well,
Maybe I'm just a little bitch, but I'm like, why are you getting punched for?
I mean, I don't know, but they want to do it.
Fair.
You know, I'm not going to tell them. You know, the one thing I've told people to do is do less sparring. That's it.
Okay.
Do less sparring.
What, preserve themselves more?
Yeah.
That's fair.
You know, you don't need to spar. You know, once you get to a certain level, you can stop sparring. You don't. You know, you can spar once for one hard spar for a fight or something.
But then you tell me that Buckley does 10 5-minute rounds.
He didn't spar live. He didn't go.
Oh,
he didn't. They were really hard rounds, but they were with little gloves.
Got you. So,
And we're trying not to get taken down.
Oh, because you were going against Colby, so it was all about.
Right. So it was a lot to do with. And Jeff was doing a lot of stuff with entries, and I was working on a lot of footwork, moving away from lead leg and keeping off the fence, and how to sprawl, and you know there was a lot of things that we worked on that he was able to use in the fight, and there's a lot of things that he was doing wrong before he got with us.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Did you have
he probably still won the fight without us. he's something else.
Dude, he's a naturally gifted guy, but that's what I was trying to ask.
Yeah, but I know he did better because of us.
Well, he's also, what, 30, 31? How old?
30.
Yeah, 30. So this is like his athletic prime. He's just getting started. He's on the up and up. He could very much well be, and I hate to say it like this, but I don't mean this as an insult to Tyron, but he could be like the better, younger, more explosive version of Tyron with a lot of like...
Completely different styles. But,
yes.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to work on his jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's going to get better at everything.
Completely different styles, but also like same frame. Like they're like the same height. Yeah, they're both like 5'8", 5'9". No, Buckley's like 5'10". My bad. I'm just saying, like they have a lot of similarities. I remember when Tyron was
Tyron's not as good of an athlete as everybody thinks he is. He's a good athlete, but he's not like when he played at McClure, like football team, he wasn't the best. He was on defense because he didn't have the shiftiness to be on offense. He was straightforward tackle.
Yeah, but he was a Division I wrestler.
He's not as good. He's a hard worker, man.
Yeah.
He's smart. He beat guys that were better athletes than him.
What did you think of Cortavius as a natural athlete? Because I was in the cage with him, Mike, and I got to be honest with you. Him and Austin Bashi, their strength made no sense to me.
Yeah, he's a natural athlete. He didn't have he was better jiu-jitsu than he was a better jiu-jitsu player than anything.
Court?
But yeah.
No shit.
Armbar machine. Yeah. And he was a good kicker.
When he came to you, did he know any jiu-jitsu?
I don't think so. Like when he came to me, he hadn't trained. He fought you. I felt like when he fought you, like you were more of our fighter, and he had trained with us for 2 weeks.
I said it in my interview.
So you were more of a Saint Charles MMA fighter at that time fighting, and he came in the door. He's like, I got to fight with Arian. I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah.
I didn't say that to him. I was like, okay. He left, so we'll fight him.
I didn't like the way they when they did that interview, the question that they asked me was like, what do you think about him training at Saint Charles MMA? And I remember my response was like, there's no way they can fix the holes that I see in that short of a time. Like if they had like a year with him, this would be a much different fight. But luckily for me, they had like maybe a month, 2 months with them. You know what I mean?
2 weeks.
But they took that little snippet. And they made it sound like, oh, I don't care. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I don't remember that. But
I remember that, brother, because I said the words. I was like, yo, that is not what I fucking said.
In fact, I forgot the whole thing. You even fought him until I had heard someone brought it up the other day, and I even forgot the whole. That's been a long time, man.
I know.
So hasn't crossed my mind in a long time.
I want to have him on too, but I don't know if he'd ever say yes.
I don't think he would. He's not a
social
social media guy. He's social when you talk to him, but he's very, I don't think he would do it.
I don't think so either. Here's me hoping. I want this to be good. I want this to be like a good thing.
Yeah, I think, it's kind of fun. You're getting people on that would never have a chance to be on a podcast at your beginning as you're building this thing, and you're giving people an opportunity to have fun and get on a podcast, and their families get to see them, and then maybe you're getting some fans out of that, that'll think, oh man, he does a pretty good interview, and maybe I'll check him out more and keep an eye on who he has on as a guest, so
I want to say thank you for that as well, because I don't think we would be here. I think we're growing, but that's also in conjunction with, I can't tell you how many times when you do a share or when you bring me like a guest, the amplification of your community has definitely benefited us. And I can tell whenever you share something, whenever you like an episode and you give it the thumbs up, it just like the numbers start going up, and it's been very fortuitous to me. I don't know how big the
numbers would be. It can't be that high. So, I mean, if for me, I don't think at all.
Dude, a 3 hour, let's say it's a 2 hour video and we have 100 people watching. That's crazy. Like, I remember, I'll give you a little backroom politics. So Erin is like this YouTube / social media. She was like a Twitch streamer. And I remember the very first episode we did or whatever, it was like an hour and 15 minutes. And the average watch time was like 32 minutes. And to me, I was like, oh my God, we did like an hour and 15 minutes and people didn't even make it past halfway. I told Erin, I was like, I'm fucking shitting the bed on this. Like, what should I do differently? And she goes, Arion, That's fucking amazing. Like the majority of people get like 10% the viewer time that you're getting. You're getting like half. That's amazing. And it made me feel really good. And the guest that I had on originally, like you were one of them, one of the first 5-6 guests that we had. And I don't know, man. When this was like fucking nothing and like no one knew what we were, and I just fucking started this thing, I just wanted to say thank you for being on and really helping us when we needed it most.
Hey, you know what I forgot to say about that UFC? Sean Woodson also was on it.
Yes.
So my son's a fan of Sean Woodson, so he got to see that Sean fight too.
Did he get to talk to Sean?
No, we didn't. I don't remember. I saw him walking out, but I wasn't going to try and like, hey.
Dab him up? Why not?
Well, I said, hey, good luck. But that's, I'm not going to stop and talk to him. And, So, but
do
you
you think we'll ever get to the point where St. Louis, you know what? I do have another line of questioning for you. Do you think St. Louis MMA, now with the amount of success that it's having, some of the barriers between people, individuals, organizations are kind of coming down? I think people are playing nice more now than ever before.
It's less competitive. So people are having to consolidate a little bit, I think.
When you say less competitive, you mean less gyms? Like
there's less gyms. There's not.
Is there? There's ES, there's Church, there's you, there's Mops Gym.
Yeah, but okay, so ES they do MMA, but it's a kickboxing gym.
Fair.
Church is a boxing gym.
Yeah, but they have MMA fighters as well, though. I mean, you're a jiu-jitsu gym that also does MMA.
The Church doesn't have any MMA fighters. They don't. I don't think they may have some guy that don't have any. Jamie's a kickboxing coach.
Yeah.
So
you think the consolidation of the market has kind of caused that?
Let's see who else. We got in Illinois. We don't even. Is there even a team in Illinois anymore?
Revive is a jiu-jitsu gym.
Yeah, there's no.
Alton, Adam Marburger's gym, I believe, is a jiu-jitsu gym.
Yeah, and so sometimes you'll have, you got Wolves Den and us.
Yeah.
And Finney. Right? Is that it?
I'm trying to think.
No, Wise Warriors.
Fair, but that's not necessarily. Are they in St. Louis? Or aren't they?
Yeah, they're like St. Louis City.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they're.
Forgive me, Wise Warriors. I am just a foreign man from a foreign land.
Yeah, they got some good fighters.
Dude, you know who crushed it at last NFA? Hans guys.
Oh yeah, Hans was around too.
Hans making a return. I was very impressed with a lot of their guys. It was interesting. Yeah. I know Javi had a really tough fight with one of their guys that was making their amateur debut, and Javi got I think a split decision over him. But I was just really impressed with both guys. By the way, Javi has made leaps and bounds changes since he's gone to you guys. Yeah. How's Dalton doing? How's Jose? Good.
Dalton is really getting good.
Dalton's special.
Yeah. And
he was the one guy from Finney's where I was like, bro,
yeah.
If you want to do, I had a conversation with him. I was like, I sat him down because he's also, if you've ever talked to Dalton, he is the nicest guy. You know what I mean? So he was telling me about his day and about construction and everything and how he was tired and all this. I go, what do you want to do with this sport? He's like, I want to go as far as I can with it. I was like, brother, this is not the gym for you. Go to Saint Charles MMA.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that there's not as many. Some of the guys at my gym were, and they were fighting with the Wolves Den guys, like Josh Augustine.
Is Josh still with you?
No, and I think that was a big.
Just shit talking.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing, but then that caused problems. And I think there's not. I don't think there's anybody. I mean, I'm 51. I don't get involved in it anymore so much, but I don't see many people fighting with each other on that level. I still think guys from St. Louis should fight guys from St. Louis if it's the right fight.
I think if it's amateur.
I don't even care if it's the right fight. Take the fight. They're not a part of your team. If my guy I'm not trying to step on anybody else, and I don't want them to step on me. But if you're going to take a fight, what difference does it make if it's a guy from St. Louis if they're not on your team, or if you're driving up to Michigan to do it?
Well, duly noted. But then my response to you would be like, why fight your neighbor when you can fight the guy 250 miles away? I don't
they're
disagree
not my neighbor.
with the
I mean,
mentality.
it's not like they're not on my team. I'm not wishing bad on them, but we got to have fights, and so let's fight,
but don't you think there's enough fighters to get someone from out of town?
I'm not going to take a fight. I don't think I can win. So I don't blame people for not taking fights with us, or for me, and we will not take fights with a team thinking we're going to lose. It could be any team in St. Louis or anywhere else, but I don't feel an allegiance to somebody because they're from St. Louis.
I wouldn't say allegiance. I think that's when I discuss this, it's like at the amateur level, because when you go pro, the records reset. It really doesn't matter. It matters for experience and stuff like that, but in the grand scheme of things, amateur fights don't really matter. I say fight whoever you want. Just get the fights that you need, get them in, and then once you go pro, then you can kind of pick and choose. And I think that maybe I'm incorrect in saying this, but like I think a part of the promoter's job for NFA and for Shamrock and for whatever promotions come up thereafter, a part of their job is to also facilitate guys to that next level. And if you do like the Saint Charles versus Wolves Den guy, it's like, okay, yeah, some of you guys might make it, some of their guys might make it. Or how about we fight guys out of town?
Well, yeah.
And then more of our guys can make it.
Look, we'll fight guys from out of town, or we'll fight guys from in town if we think that they're the right fight for us. It's not my job to get somebody else from a different team into a show. I'm not wishing bad on them, and I'm not going out to try and knock them off. I'm not trying to knock anybody off.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if it gets offered to us and we're like, yeah, that's a great fight, we're taking it.
Gotcha.
And if we think, oh, that's not a good fight, we're not fighting anybody from St. Louis. I wouldn't say that, but I'd be like, no, it's not a good fight. I would never get mad at somebody or put somebody down if they said they didn't want to take the fight. Why would they want to take a fight? Why would we want to take a fight that we thought we were losing? And why would they take a fight that they thought they would lose? They could be anybody.
That's
yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I get the perk of being.
I mean, you want to see everybody. You're Team St. Louis. I'm Team Saint Charles MMA.
I want the fighters locally to make as much money as they can.
Right.
And the money's in the UFC and the higher promotions.
I want them to
so
make.
So if the more of those guys that can get out of St. Louis, like they're in St. Louis, but they can get out of fighting in St. Louis, then that's what I am. And like I don't disagree with anything you said. I think that's how I was as a fighter. I didn't give a fuck. Locally, whatever. And I think that's the way you have to be. However, I'm a little bitch now. I'm out of the game. I'm a civilized man, and I want to see like as many people kind of rise up as possible.
I'm not trying to stop anybody from rising up. I'm just trying to get my guys the best fights they can get. That's it. I'm not.
You're a biased altruist.
I'm like I want if that's good, I'm that. If Cody McGee, if the fight's good for him, we're gonna take it.
Yeah.
We're not gonna. I don't go out and call. I never have called anybody out like, hey, so and so you should fight this person. I've never been there,
you've been very mature.
I mean, it doesn't. But if a fight's offered, or I might ask the promoter for a fight, but I wouldn't go on the internet.
But I would say that that's the proper channel to do it, behind the scenes, business wise.
And if they say no, that's fine. I'm not gonna say, oh, they turned it down. What's wrong with that?
Can I ask you? Do you feel an obligation for how your fighters act? Like, if a Josh Augustine goes out there and runs his mouth on like social media, don't you think in some way he represents you? Like, for instance, if you were to go on social media and be like, so and so, go fuck yourself.
I do, but I have a high tolerance for I don't really have I have a high tolerance for other people too. How they act. I don't have I don't judge. I don't care what other people do. And I guess I do. I care more about what my guys do if they're saying something or doing something stupid. But,
So if someone's saying something to your guy, you don't really care too much. But what?
If someone's saying something to my guy, I'm territorial. But.
My question is this, Mike. Do you?
Yeah, think... I think what you're saying is like, when Augustine was an embarrassment to himself and the gym,
to your team,
everybody,
you guys,
to everybody, and he was an embarrassment after he left. And I had to kick him out. That's the guy I had to kick out. So, he lost it, man.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
That's kind of what I'm going with. This is like, when I came up, I never thought about like, granted, I was very verbal on interviews and stuff like that, but like, I always thought, this guy's got family. He's got a mom, he's got a dad who probably have him on Facebook. He might have a girlfriend, brothers, sisters. The last thing I want to fucking do is be like, hey, pussy, you want to come fight on this date? Like, dude, you're getting a bunch of people that are going to see that. Like, I don't want my dad. Like, I don't want someone tagging me in some post, hey, go fuck yourself, my dad's seeing it, or my brother's seeing it. So, like, I wouldn't want to do that to someone else.
I don't think that's a big part of the. I don't really. I don't follow a lot of other gyms or fight, so I don't know.
I think it's fucking prevalent, dude.
Is it prevalent? Because I don't see it.
Dude, I see it on social media.
People don't bring it to me. People don't bring it up to me.
Yeah.
So I don't.
I also fully acknowledge the hypocrisy of what I'm saying, because when I was in the game, I was a big shit talker. But now, I never crossed a line. I guess is like my line was always like family and all these other things. Like I don't want to bring people into the fight that aren't fighting me. Does that make sense?
I think some guys. I mean, there's room for a little bit of
banter.
Oh yeah, there's a little bit of room for that. There is a line that you shouldn't cross probably, but it's fine. Like, if you cross the line, if you're talking to somebody, and if you're getting, if me and you were having an argument, I know if I've crossed the line. If I cross the line because I want to cross it. You know what I'm saying?
Mike's like, bitch, trying to fight you.
But these guys, maybe some of them don't know. But, so that would be, if one of my guys crossed the line, I would probably say something. But a lot of it I just don't even read.
Yeah.
I don't even read it or see it. So I know there was some time with different gyms where,
a lot was being said.
Yeah, but I did deal with it one time, but it was behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it wasn't. I didn't get on the internet, but
I'm getting soft.
What are you gonna do? If you, every situation is different.
Can't control everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I like I said, I just in a weird way, I want a bunch of alpha male killers to get along with each other long enough so that they can get out of the local scene.
Yeah, and I think honestly, most of the guys do get along. And I guess you're seeing things that I'm not, but I don't know of it. I can't think of anybody that. Well, I don't even know the names of the fighters in other gyms.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody's name in the other gyms. People bring them up to me, and I'll be like, "Who's that?" I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
you just focus on your guys.
I just focus on my guys, and that's it. Like, and when somebody brings a fight, it's not like in the old days. If there was still the Knuckle Junkies, and there were still before that, there was Jim Jenkins and Andy Clearman. They had a show.
They did a little podcast.
Yeah,
not little. Forgive me. The radio station.
It was cool. And they had a website too. Jim Jenkins, he's the best matchmaker St. Louis has ever had.
You think so?
I'll bring that up. I'll say that. Yeah, for sure. He was great. He was great.
What made him the best, out of curiosity?
He had the best fights.
But back then there weren't that many promotions, weren't there? Or were there? Think about it
Probably
logically.
More.
There were more gyms, so more pool.
There was way more gyms. There was more fights. There's more shows. I don't know. Off and on, it's always been off and on. Somebody would start and someone would leave. Fight shows. I can't even remember all the names, but there's always been. There's always been fights.
Do you think there's room for more promotions? I mean, like, could your fighters benefit from that?
If you can sell the tickets, the key to being I think the key to having your own show is not needing the money.
Yeah.
And same as with a gym probably. If you don't need the money, you can, and you want to have fun, and you want to hey, I want to break even and have fun or make just a little bit of money. You might end up making a lot of money, but that's the key, not having that be your only stream of income, because you could have a pretty bad weekend, if something goes wrong.
I think not needing a profit margin is a competitive advantage in business. Yeah. Being able to hey, I could make, I don't want to lose money, obviously, but if I made no money and everybody else got paid, the fighters, the staff, everybody got paid, the venue's happy, That's a competitive advantage because now I don't need a nut to crack.
Yeah, I mean, that's we have our show. It's not my show. It's Ian's show,
Zarbo's,
but we don't even try and sell tickets. There's people that show up or they don't, and the fighters, they don't get paid for ticket sales or anything. We just, if they want to sell tickets, sell them. You know, there's no,
just to try to get fights in.
We always make money, but we don't. But it's not like a ton of money, and it's more like I think they enjoy it more than me. I like to do it because I need to get my guys fights, and a lot of guys.
When you say they, you mean Ian Zarbos?
Ian and Ryan Counterman.
Gotcha.
They're beasts, man. They do most of the work for it. You know, they got me involved because I got fighters. I think more than anything, they like me. We're friends. I mean, we're partners at the gyms. Kind of. They own their own gym, and so they take care of me. They do most of the work.
How many shows do they do a year? Like 2 or 3?
3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Okay.
And so, they're great guys, and they do a great job. And I do some of the matchmaking. I'm able to fill fights at the end, last minute a lot of times that are hard to
Was it
fill.
you who made Bree versus Nicole Mazuka? Who did that?
It might have been, or it might have been Ian.
I saw that on paper.
I wasn't really involved. I think Ian probably did that.
When I saw that on paper, everyone else was talking about the fight, and I was like, "There's no fucking way that fight happens."
Yeah.
There's no fucking way that fight happens.
Nicole would showed up.
No, not because of Nicole. Not because of Nicole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember I told Ian, and I'm gonna show you the text message afterwards, and I'll show you the date on it.
Yeah.
I messaged him. I go, brother, I will bet everything I have that person does not make the walk.
I know Bree had some. I never had a. She's trained at our gym for a long time. I know there was no drama.
No, she's a nice girl.
And so I never had any issues with her. I know the stuff that has happened way after she was with us. So, I like her.
All I know is when that fight was made, I thought to myself, who the fuck was the matchmaker?
Yeah.
And here I am talking to him.
I think it was Ian, honestly. I think it was Ian. Ian and Ryan, they do, like I said, they're great guys, and they do a lot of, their shows are good, man. It's only $45 a ticket. If people want to go watch a good show.
I think it could be cheaper.
Yeah. Well, if we put in time to get sponsorships, maybe, but we don't put that time in. They do. I get the ring girls, I get the DJ. Well, I get the announcer. They're all already there.
Can I ask you
probably use another ring girl if anybody wants to do it.
Can I ask you a logistical question? Do you think that fighters? I think there's a lot of expenses that go into a promotion, okay? But do you think if the fighters are just like, take a Julius Anglickas, for instance. I have been in conversations with fighters, or I've heard of fighters that have taken no purse at all just to get a fight. You know what I mean?
We paid for Julius's last fight. I paid $1,000, and his manager paid $1,000 to get it going.
Jesus.
For the guys.
Just to entice him.
That was on top of the
whatever
the purse was going to be.
So there's obviously instances in which you just need to get the fights. Don't you think if there was a promotion that was working with the fighters to be like, guys, we're not in it for the money, we're in it for the opportunities. We'll pay as much as we can, but we want to keep costs as low as possible to make sure that the tickets are as cheap as possible. I, as a local fighter, I never thought I was going to make money in the local scene. That was a foregone conclusion to me. I was like, I don't care about the money. It's not about the money. It's about the opportunities. It's about the venues. It's about the platform. It's about the production. How good does it look? Does this elevate my brand? Does this get me to the next level? Yeah. I think that's what fighters that think they're going to get to the next level, that's what they care about more, right? Yeah. I think there's room for a promotion that kind of can facilitate some of that and maybe change the paradigm.
I think another key to a promotion besides not having to make money is if you have a good salesperson that wants to go sell tickets. You get somebody that's motivated to sell.
to sponsors though.
Yeah, oh,
Not to
they can sell the
individuals.
sponsors. They can sell straight tickets. They can, either one of those. But one person could, they don't have any responsibilities. They're not owners in the show. They don't match make. All they do is go out and sell. And then they would get 10-20%, whatever they wanted
Like
to
a
give them.
commission basis. Like,
Yeah.
well,
If you find one person or two people that want to do that, that are hustlers that want a side gig.
what would you say about someone instead of trying to sell individual tickets per se? Because I think a paradigm, if I were to ever get into the business,
Next week.
I would try to change. I wouldn't want to do it the way it's been done. Because then it's like, well, what are you getting into this namespace to do? To do it the same way everybody else is? In business, they say that there's two ways to kind of elevate yourself above the pack. Either be first or be the smartest. And if you're going to be a promotion now, there's by no way you're going to be first. So you have to be smarter. And smarter in what way? Like, if I get into this game, let's say, and I do the exact same thing Shamrock or NFA does, how am I going to expect any sort of different result? I'm going to have to go into the same, kind of cycle that they all go through. I think the way to change it is to change how you view the business structure of a promotion. And instead of trying to get fighters to sell tickets, promote the event.
Yeah.
Don't promote the fighters. Let the fighters promote fighters. You promote the event. And by that, I mean promote it to businesses. Sell it to people with marketing budgets. Sell it to people with money to spare. Call me crazy, Mike. I don't want to pay $85 for a UFC pay-per-view, and I damn sure don't want to pay $60 to go watch local fighters fight. I wouldn't want to watch me fight for $60. I just think it's very expensive. I think if you could get that down to $30, I think you could pack a fucking house. 2,000, 3,000 people. I do.
Go do it, man. Let's
Yeah,
go.
I know. Easier said than done, right?
But now's a good, whenever I first started, there wasn't, there were still 5 television stations, and then,
God
maybe
damn, you're old.
an assortment of cable channels, But
what
now
was the black and white television like?
Yeah, I had a black and white television.
No, fuck. I'm so sorry. I was joking.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, the one in our living room was color. All of our bedrooms had black and white.
Oh my God. Hey, you, silence.
Yeah. But it didn't matter because the shows were still black and white. So anyway, what the heck was I talking about?
Promotions.
Yeah,
right
the
now is a
promotions
good
have
time to get in.
so many opportunities as far as getting it on television. If you got money and you can do a broadcast, it's much cheaper to do a broadcast now. You get some guy that knows how to hook up to the internet, get a couple cameras, get a nice computer or
Things
whatever.
that used to
whatever
cost
they
20,
need.
30,000 now cost 10.
So now you can broadcast much easier. You can get it out to people much easier. You could probably, there's so many more television stations that might want to buy it. There's some,
The limiting factor isn't the technology or the staff, it's the connections now. Mm-hmm. So what used to stop people was like that initial cost, like, oh my God, it's going to take like $50,000.
And the connections too. But there's no opportunity with those connections because there's so few of them.
Yes.
And also, nobody even knew what it was. So it wasn't legal in a lot of places.
That's one thing that I'll give credit to Shamrock that they do really well. I'll be at like some random fucking place and they'll actually have Shamrock fights. Yeah. Like at Bally Sports or whatever it is. And it's like, I saw my fight up there one time. I was like, holy shit. Like,
yeah. Who's that guy?
It's not a variable or it's not a value to you until you see it, right? So I think that a lot of the promotions do things right. Shamrock does things right. NFA does things right. Your promotion does things right. I don't know.
There's opportunities.
I just think there could be
people.
I think there could be one more.
Yeah, I mean, there's one king, right now, UFC. They're the king, and I don't think you can knock them off.
I would never try to compete with them.
But you could build a pretty nice product and make some money. And
if I did it, I would try to be like an LFA. I would try to be the feeder league. I really would. Well, that would be like my niche, and that would be like what I would just try to make something that I wish I would have had when I was coming up. That would be like the goal.
I mean, look, you can get on UFC deal. You can UFC Fight Pass or whatever. All those kind of things.
If I did it right, I would do it for free. Stream it on Twitch or YouTube for free. If I did it right, because once again, I'm not selling tickets to people. I'm selling the event.
Like Karate Combat.
Yeah, I want to sell the event to businesses, and the way you do that is like, how does Facebook and X and TikTok, how do they make money? They sell you to businesses. Well, that's what I want to do. I want to sell 3,000, 4,000 people crowds to businesses with marketing budget, and then I can sell tickets for like $20 instead of $60. So now when, fighter X from Saint Charles MMA is like fighting for my promotion or a promotion, it doesn't have to be mine, and they're like, hey, my tickets are $20. And they're like, well, fuck, my tickets are 60. Holy shit. Like, what are we
you
doing?
could be like Kenny Nolling and give them all free.
I wish, but
I don't think you can do that anymore, but still, that was a great idea.
You can.
You can? But you have to pay per ticket or something coming through the door?
You can do whatever you want with the tickets. If you want to give them away for free, you can. But you still have to pay the taxes on them at a fair market value. Mm-hmm. And the discussion to be had is, what is a fair market value? Yeah. By the discussions that I've had is, nothing is stopping me or anybody from giving away a free ticket. I can do that. But when it comes time to pay the taxes, that ticket might be $20, let's say a GA. I can give it to you for free. You can come to the show for free, but I'm going to have to pay for the taxes on that one.
Well, it was a great
business model.
It was a great idea because, he was giving all those free, he was probably giving away 50,000 tickets.
Yeah.
I think he probably had 10,000 people in the first one, and then they were charging $20 a car parking, and splitting the beer and
with the family
food,
arena,
which is probably a lot of money, you know. And
when you got 10,000 people in an arena, dude,
right? That's a
lot
amazing.
Of beer.
That's a lot of.
Say what you want about Kenny Nolling, piece of shit human being, but great businessman until he wasn't.
I mean, I like Kenny. I like everybody, man. I like Kenny. I don't have a problem with Kenny. He's I like him. What am I gonna say? I don't remember the bad stuff he did. So
Mike is like, I'll fight anybody, but I got no.
No, I won't fight anybody anymore. Believe me. But I tell you what, I like him. I think he's got the ADRL now again. I don't know what do I have not to like about him?
Yeah, he's done business with you, and he's gotten your guys fights, and listen.
I mean, it worked out. It should have worked out. That model should have worked out. I don't know how it didn't.
I don't know how Fight Hard actually, to be honest with you, I have no idea how Fight Hard collapsed.
They stopped promoting it and giving out those tickets, and people weren't coming.
I think they did one event. I think I do remember. Do you remember when the Black Zillions came, and they tried to do one event where they sold tickets? I don't know if you recall that. Thiago Silva was like the main event against some like local guy, but the local guy ended up knocking out Thiago Silva. That's what it was. I remember that they were trying to do like Black Zillions versus everybody else, and they were trying to sell tickets to that, and it flopped. And I think a big reason why it flopped was everyone was so used to, you set the standard for free tickets that no one wants to pay for these tickets anymore. Yeah. And I think it was just like an absolute like economic disaster, and that's what folded them. So,
man, I there's been so many shows, it's hard to remember everything.
I bet.
I don't remember anything bad about him. The shows were cool. That's how Lance got on UFC.
Was Fight Me?
Before
it was Fight Hard?
It was Fight Me, yeah. And he got a knockout of a Ultimate Fighter guy. And I sent it to UFC. That's back when I managed the guys. And Strikeforce and UFC offered the same time. So we took UFC.
Well, Mike, 2 hours, man.
How long has it been?
2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we end it, is there anything you want to say? No. Buy low, sell high.
See you in a few months. Yeah.
Let's do episode 3 soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.